are our earnest attempt to bring forward experts in many fields related to children, their health, and education. Today, in our episode of Joy of Parenting, we have with us a very special guest. She is Mrs. Vidya Nesarikar. She is a children's writer and a certified storyteller from Kathalaya. Her original stories and writings have been published in the Hindu, Champak magazine, and Parent Circle. She was formerly working in the PR and corporate communication industry. She realized the power of stories when she won the Silver Award at the India Film Project Session 9 Storytelling Challenge. Since then, she has been invited to perform at many prestigious events such as Levi's Lounge, Best of Commune, and Spoken Fest Mumbai. Though she's a storyteller for both adults and children, she loves spinning tales for the little kids because they always let her know if she was boring. All right, a very warm welcome to you, Vidya. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. So, would you like to say a few words here, Vidya?
Thank you so much, Ramya. It was a really wonderful introduction and to hear those words. And it's such a special thing. Like I said, sharing stories with little children is my favorite thing to do. And it's so I'm a storyteller, like you just said, and I'm just looking forward to this session and having this discussion on the art of storytelling. Thank you.
That's lovely. All right, and now I am Ramya Chandrasekhar. Just a small brief about me. I'm the center head at Angels Paradise Academy, Amenora, and I'm also a content head at Uriel Kids Online School. So before starting the webinar, it is my privilege to introduce you to Uriel Kids Online. Let me take you through a small video that will show you the concept behind what Uriel Kids is. So over to the video now. So, Uriel Kids is India's 24/7 online preschool where we are passionate about educating young minds to help them explore the world of knowledge and curiosity. Uriel Kids will be launched in UAE in April 2021, followed by a launch in India. Your child can learn anywhere, anytime. Your Uriel Kids covers a broad spectrum of subjects like phonics, general awareness, mathematics, English, etc., which will ensure all-round and holistic learning and development of the child. The courses have been designed by a team of educationists with decades of global experience, and there will be live classes as well. So now, without much ado, it's time to start our webinar with Vidya. So can I shoot the questions, Vidya?
Oh, yes, please go right ahead. Please be gentle.
All right. So my first and foremost question to you is how and what made you interested towards storytelling?
I think as when I turned a mother and a parent, every parent turns into a storyteller, I suppose. And so it was an organic journey. So what began as telling stories to children was supplemented, of course, but I was always writing before this. So I was from corporate, I moved to writing for children. I used to write a parenting column. Then I began writing stories. I realized it came naturally. So from there on, I think once I started writing stories, people were like, why don't you tell your own stories and share your own stories? So that began as something I did in the society for kids or a group of kids, at festivals and things like that. Then I said, I enjoy this so much. Why don't I see what more I can do with this? Which led to Kathalaya. And
Okay.
from then on, so there is telling stories for children as one part, and there is another gamut of storytelling for adults, which is almost like stand-up comedy.
Oh,
So yeah, so there are
yes.
open mics and things like that. So the format is poetry and storytelling and music. So I started to go for that, and I realized I stepped into a different world. And so I've been doing both, balancing both of the stories for adults and for children.
That's
So
lovely. I think the second one is a little harder, right? Making people laugh, I would assume.
yeah, thankfully, in storytelling, you don't have to make people laugh. You can just evoke any emotion. I think the stand-up comedy is serious business, so and I wouldn't want to venture there. But
Okay.
but yeah, this is all right. I think any sort of connect that you make with an audience, so whether it's children or adults, I think the whole art of storytelling is how do you connect with your audience, and that's what makes a storyteller, I suppose.
Oh, that's very nice to hear. That's kind of contagious, right? I mean, once you are able to see that somebody is enjoying it, I think then it would just catch on to you, and then you would like to do more and more of it. I guess.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think that's how it was. It's actually just sucked me in, Apart from this pandemic, which suddenly got to stop on things, just things took a life on its own. I mean, whether it was going for events or, fests or things like that, it just every other weekend or schools and events, they just something or the other happening. So it just became like a complete persona because I always thought of myself, even when I introduce, I say I'm a full-time mother and a part-time storyteller. But sometimes I'm feeling other roles reversing now.
All right, that's lovely to hear. Yes. So next, over to the next question, Vidya. What, according to you, makes a good storyteller?
Yes. So, like I said, I mean, all of us are storytellers, right? I mean, when we come after a long day, we share our what happened in our day with our family or at a party, or so there is that intrinsic storyteller in all of us. So, how does one? So it's odd to say that you're a storyteller. Say, I mean, I can tell stories is what people generally say. So, I think the few things that set you apart as a professional storyteller is for you to first believe in your story, whether it's a story you're telling for children or adults. If you don't believe it or you think you're boring, then I'm sure you're not going to make any impact on anybody who's listening to you. And to use all your five senses, you need to be able to visualize the story in your head and bring it out. And then, of course, is the aids that you use, perhaps, whether you're using a puppet, if you can sing or anything, or you're getting your audience to interact with you. It's just about how you can get your audience to engage with you. And I think these are, and each person has their own style. I know some people are more comfortable singing. Some people use their whole body. It's their language, the body language. Some have facial expressions. Some just take you to another place completely. So, it's hard to pinpoint and say, this is what it is. But once. So I would say, like I said in the beginning, if you can make that connect with an audience and they carry something of the story with them, and don't just forget it when you finish your story, I think that's what makes a good storyteller.
Wow. All right. And so, do you generally end a story asking children what the moral of the story is, or you are not? You don't go by that belief because
Uh,
I asking I mean
yes.
asking them, or maybe prompting what the moral is, or you would like to hear from the child as to what they learned in their own words. What is it about?
Yeah, so typically in my storytelling, I have tried to shun away from the typical good and bad stories because one, probably their parents have already told them
Mhm.
whether it's the Panchatantra or your, what happened, the dog dropped the piece of roti that was in the mouth into the lake because it barked and, because it was too greedy or something like that. So these stories children have heard, and usually some child will stop me and say, I've already heard this now.
Right. Okay.
So I try to pick more contemporary stories with probably subtle messages, and there are so many stories to choose from the current crop of Indian publishers or foreign. So And so I would like to say that I would not directly ask for a model to answer your question. I'd like to leave it open ended and see what comes out. So I would just say, which part did you like? Which character did you associate with, or did you want to draw and show me what you liked about it? Or and it's surprising what comes out. Someone's a child said that she was feeling lonely and she was missing her parents because she was staying with her grandparents. And so it's nice to have these open-ended conversations, and rather than beat down a model down their head,
Yeah.
is what is I feel. And
Right, because typically a story ends with, so what did we learn from the story? Can you
yes,
all tell us
yes,
the moral of the story? Rather
yes,
than that, I
yes.
think it's good to understand their perspective.
Yes, and I think that is how, as Indians, how our perspective towards these stories, and especially with children, we want them to learn something good or take a learning or take a moral out of it. But what we forget is children are by nature very insightful and empathetic, and so you just
Yes,
can leave a story out there and let them think about it, and sometimes they may surprise you with things that you never thought about.
absolutely. Totally agree with you. Totally agree. Yes. All right. Okay, Vidya. So over to the next question. Could you enlighten us with the benefits of storytelling, please? What do you think are the benefits that you've seen children get during storytelling?
Yes, morals would be what parents are looking for, but looking beyond that, it's just I think storytelling as a tradition is not is age old, especially in cultures like ancient cultures, whether it's Greek or India. So that and oral storytelling, in fact, has been around for ages. So there has to be something more to it, that right? So I would say for little children, especially. It would be your communication skills. It's a way to pick up vocabulary, learn lessons in empathy, to express yourself, uh, broach difficult topics. Sometimes it's hard to, we like to have a rosy picture about the life all around us, but there is a circle to life, right? So if you want to talk about deaths, for instance, maybe it's nice to start with a story. Maybe to talk about the cycle of butterfly or a flower, which has this eventuality, or use a spider or Charlotte's Web as a wonderful example. So there's so many things that you can do with stories, and that's, I think, like I said, it's the best way to connect with a child. So I wouldn't box it and say this is what you will get and this is your learning outcomes, but the probably if you would see a ripple effect of storytelling throughout a childhood and probably into adulthood as well. So it's I think that it is that impactful if you use the medium and the tool effectively.
Okay, so there are innumerable benefits that we can't just jot it down and say, okay, this is what it is. It
Yeah, I
just
think
goes
if you
beyond.
want to put it on your fingertips immediately, I would say communication skills. Listening is one. Vocabulary has in this time of using gadgets, it's a great way to detach and
Mhm.
sit in one place and actually listen. It can be a very calming and relaxing activity as well, and which is needed for the kids of this generation. And when I started off initially, I was, will I be able to do it? Was something I thought, will they actually sit and listen? Was But then they do, and without any distractions, they sit through the whole session. So that's it can be done. It's not that you need a gadget for this generation.
Right.
It's
Yes, and I think it's a great way to bond with them as parents. Also, they can
bonding
bond. It's a bonding
of
time.
course. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Teachers are one thing. For parents, and I would suggest to do it at a regular time, perhaps after dinner. Have a story, and be ready to tell the same story 100 times.
Mhm.
Even if you are exhausted of it, there is something that children find endearing to hear the same story again and again. It's a great way for children, like I said, to de-stress and relax, get into their bedtime. It's one way of getting to know about how their day went. You can probably
Yes.
share something that happened, and they can open up, because many children, parents say that we don't our children don't speak up and don't talk, or they don't find time or to talk about what happened in each other's day. So storytelling is absolutely, like you said, a great way for children and parents to bond and learn about more about each other.
Yes. Great. Okay. And some children are not very interested. I mean, as a a preschool educator myself, I see that some kids react well to stories, while some look here and there, they don't pay attention to it. So what is one way, what is a tip that you would give to teachers and to parents to grab their attention towards storytelling?
A romantic way of looking at it is saying that you just not found your right story yet. Whenever a child comes to me and
That's
says,
that's that's lovely to hear. Yeah, probably.
yeah,
That's
because
what
I'm
it
sure it
is.
doesn't work well in a classroom. You can't, be philosophical and say you haven't found your right story. So I think there will always, every child is unique, and of course there will be some who take to it innately, and some have to be cajoled a bit. And the way I would say it is, the easy trick is to always start with a funny story.
Okay.
So this always gets their attention. Something humorous rather than something heavy-handed. I know our nature is to imbibe morals and values, but there could be a nice message in it as well. Just because it's funny, it's just not for fun. So that is one way I usually hook the kids in. And and if they are wandering around, I let them wander. There are, especially with small kids, I'm sure as a teacher you'll have the nose diggers, you'll have the rollers on the floor, and easily getting distracted because some sound came from somewhere.
Yes.
So maybe you can, one way to do it is make sure you have your children seated in a particular manner and do like an introduction. In a little ahead in this, I'll talk to you about aids that you can use. So maybe you can start with a little drum. I'm sure many of the teachers are already doing this,
Yes.
so have a little something to get their attention, and then, just go right
Right.
in. And then, of
Okay.
course, it's with children, you know how it is. Like, they can be brutal. They'll say they've heard that before, or they're not interested, or it's boring. So usually what I do when children say that they've heard the story before, I'll say, but you haven't heard me say it. You haven't heard my version of it. So you're going to sit and listen. So
That's a
they,
great step for us. Yes. That's a good thing for an answer. Yeah, because I sometimes wonder, what do I say that, okay, all right, and then maybe I just distract the kid, but then, yeah, this is the right answer, and then maybe they will understand. Okay. Okay. And do you have any suggestion or advice to teachers with regard to how they can teach a lot of topics in their class through storytelling as a medium? Like different concepts, be it science or maths. How can they incorporate all those subjects in the form of storytelling and yet, this the lesson can be beneficial to children?
I think especially in our, if you see our regional rhymes, and there are always, like, counting has rhymes, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, once upon a fish alive. So there's so many songs that use lessons as concepts. And I think anything can be benefited when you add a story in it. If you see some of the story, especially I think if you see Story Weaver, the Pratham books and Tulika, they have concept, they have maths concept stories, they have science concept stories, or so these can be weaved in at the beginning or in the middle somewhere, and you can. I remember there was one Russian story that I remember reading as a kid, and which I've done in a storytelling about all these kids who decide to have an incubator and hatch these eggs on their own over
Oh,
21 days. It's such an interesting little tale where everybody's growing, trying to get the temperature right. Somebody buys eggs from the shop, and then they say, no, those won't work. You have to get it from a farm. So when you each anything that can be converted into a lesson, like brushing your teeth, can be turned into a story about how this goblin all the teeth fell out because they didn't brush it properly, and anything can be. So I think it's easier, of course, with younger children to turn it around, but with older children as well, science concepts can be turned. Whether you don't have to do just fiction stories, you can do non-fiction. You can bring in the scientist behind it, or the historian. History, of course, gives you an ample amount of ways of presenting stories to them, and that will be easier rather than just doing dates and facts. And I think it's just wide open, and probably you just have to be a little need a little time, because if you're time pressed, probably you won't be able to get this
mm-hmm.
done. But
Right.
maybe as extra reading material, or spend 5 minutes on it and just quickly spin a story somewhere. It would, I'm sure, it would get children's attention and leave more of an impact than just doing the lesson plan itself.
Right. That's a great insight, Vidya. Thank you. And Vidya, what all aids do you suggest, and what all aids do you use during the storytelling session to make it
Um,
interesting?
I think the most powerful tool every storyteller has is, of course, their voice itself. I know what you can do with your voice, because if you have a soft voice, probably you won't be able to firstly be heard. And then when
Yeah.
you're dealing with small children, it's a lot like theater itself, because you're standing in front of an audience and doing this. And with small children, it's always good to have like a smiling face. And these seem like simple things, but sometimes you get nervous and you may not forget to do this. And to be
Mhm.
comfortable in your own skill, because I think if they sense fear, they know that you're not of this one, and they may get distracted. So it starts with all those little things, and how you present your story. With little children, use a rhyme, use repetition. So if you can go back to the same, if there's a chorus, if you can break your story and then get your audience to participate. So if you say the farmer went and was digging in the ground, and you say dum takita dum takita dum, every day he went to his farm to dig his ground. So you can add these little bits of
Sound
rhyme and
effects and
rhythm,
stuff. Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
which work very well, I have seen. And you can use your entire body. I think with children, it's good to get as animated as possible. So don't be shy to use your entire body. If you need to stand, stand. And with little children, probably you like to sit, because somebody towering over them may look very overwhelming. So if it's very small children, that 2, 2.5, and 3, make them sit around you and sit in front, and then share the story and use your hands and your facial expressions. And if you can sing, I think it's great to sing. I'm not a singer, but now these days I am trying to sing, because
Okay.
there are some who do it just so beautifully, and but I'm not. But I do try to just add in one line, and I hope I don't forget the lyrics, which always happens somehow. And then I just hope nobody spots it that I got it wrong. And you can, of course, there are aids that you can use. Like I said, you can use a little drum. You can use a funny nose, wear a hat. But the thing is, sometimes when you use a prop, you're limited to one character. So if it's just a one character story, it's fine. But otherwise, you'll have, if it's just a crow or something, you can show a crow and say the crow did this, 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 and that. But if there are multiple characters, you should be able to change your persona, because if you have a
Mhm.
hat for a cowboy, then you'll have to take off your hat if you're doing another character. So you should be able to manage all of these things.
So
That's
many
one
things.
problem with using props. And if you're using a prop, make sure you just don't throw it on the ground, because you are giving it a life at that moment. So you need
Right.
to be able to keep it down and then go on to. So there's a bit of work involved there. So that
Okay.
needs some practice if you're
Okay. Yeah.
using
And
it.
at school also, we have been Angel's Paradise also. We have a lot
Yes,
of these story bags wherein we
right,
take a bag and put a story book and all the associated characters inside. Because I
correct,
think when we are in the middle of a school session, it's very
right,
hard for us to have so many things at one go. So we
correct.
rather keep all of them in a story bag and then take it with us and then do a story with them. And of course, a lot of musical instruments that we have, we try to play drums
Correct.
and all the shakers and everything to garner their attention. So
Yes.
we
Yeah, I
do
think so
try to do,
already,
and then we also yeah.
angels, right, like you said, are already doing. I think many schools and angels are doing all of these things. So it's not that it's some rocket science that only I am doing. So what else is
Right.
that you? I'm interested in hearing what else do you do. The story bag is a great idea, I think.
Yeah, and also we do this something called story massage, wherein we try. It's a very soothing thing that we children that all the children of the class we sit in a circle, with our backs against each other. So working my hands on the child's back, and while telling a story, like we're going on a bear hunt and stuff. So we kind of give those sensory feel. So they really love doing that, and children who require special attention, so they also seem to feel very nice when we do that. They giggle, they laugh. It's a fun time because the teacher is also doing silly thing with them.
Right.
So it is we blow behind their neck and all those things. So it's fun. Story massage is something that we learn. And then,
Okay.
just scribbling on a paper or a chart while we are reciting a rhyme or maybe a story. So that way, at the end of it, they don't see the paper, they just listen to the story. and then they try to draw. Like for example, if I'm doing wheels on the bus, we just
Right.
do it with the crayons, and at the end of the session, we just get to see what we did on the paper, and it is really nice to see the outcome. So these are some things that we try to do it based on what we learned to add more of story time in the sessions. So
Absolutely.
your inputs are also, yeah, that's nice.
And I remember once I used, because the children were very distracted, I gave them all one little rock. And I said, you have to pass this little rock and look at it and tell me what you think or imagine. So all of them very solemnly, they were looking at it and they passed it along to each other. And in that way, they also calmed down a bit and they were ready for the
Yes,
story. So
yes,
they're so with little children, I think you need a pre and the story itself. That works, and to not keep it very long-winded. So because they are children after
okay,
all.
yes, right, right. Get it. Thanks for the insight, Vidya. And child steps out of a preschool, it is generally noticed, even with my children, I find that the normal, the typical schools, they come out of storytelling very soon. They get into a formal teaching using PPTs and experiments and won't bring in a lot of stories when into proper full-fledged schooling. So what is your
I think one reason that happens is probably because the children start reading on their own. So they probably feel that is there a necessity for an oral storytelling to be done. But I think whether it's parents or teachers, this is something, and especially for parents in the before I get to teachers, that even if your child can read on their own, don't just stop story time. Still continue that tradition of narrating a story. My children still like it. Sometimes they'll say, "Chal, come and tell a story," and sometimes they'll say, "Arey, you can read on your own. Why do you need me?" But still, like
Mhm.
we discussed before, it is a bonding exercise.
Yes.
And with schools, are like you rightly pointed out, it does go down. But I have still seen some schools now introduce it as a storytelling club. I do for one school where from first to fifth standard, whoever wants to join can join in for the storytelling session. And here, another thing about it is, while with little kids you tend to be silly and it's more body humor and you're using your expressions and all that. With older children, you get an opportunity to deal with more complex topics or complex issues. Maybe you can bring in bullying, you can bring in various other things, mental health, whatever
Body
else,
shaming and
body
so many
shaming, all these
sensitive
things,
topics. Yeah.
which can be introduced with stories. So, and some of them are doing it. Maybe not at the on an everyday level. It's probably difficult, but I do see stories being incorporated wherever they can be, and to deal with this. And I think this is a great way to connect with these kids, especially again with teenage kids who are a very distracted lot. You can't really give them some nonsense moral stories and all. That's not going to work with them. But you need, if you give them the right content, they are ready to listen. So maybe personal stories, non-fiction stories would work better rather than fiction itself. They would be willing to listen to something perhaps that happened. They know that happened to someone else, and they say, "Oh, no, I can relate to that. If that person went to that, maybe I'm not alone in going through the situation." So,
Okay.
so I have done one session for teenage children as well, and they were quite receptive. I was scared because you know how it is when you are new in
Yeah.
culture. I thought
Right.
they're all going to be sulky, but they were quite receptive, and I was quite happy that it went off
Oh,
well.
that's heartening, actually. Yes, to hear that some schools are thinking about it and incorporating it. I think that's a very
Yes.
important thing.
Yes, but
Right.
of course, there's room to do much more, right? So we just discussed about having the stories in lesson plans and things like that. But yes, there's always an ideal situation and always a work in progress. So it's just good to know that there is some work going on in that area.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. True. And what to the next question, Vidya? What should be kept in mind while buying books for children? There are so many options. I get confused once I go into a shop, and I think many parents are confused as well. So, what kind of book should they look for their children? And in some cases, in some books, we also come across words such as hate, kill, cut. because one of my parent brought it to notice that, I don't want this publications book, because they kind of use a lot of these kind of words.
Right.
He killed him, he pushed him, he hates him, and all that. So
Right.
I mean, if they come across, you don't have a choice. You buy a book, and sometimes you will come across those kind of words. So what can you do to kind of divert them from that uh, kind of
Um,
usage?
I think one is the age appropriateness of books itself, and what I see currently, what is placed in bookstores, I feel there's a lot that can be, much more that can be done. You still have your fairy tales and your 165 moral stories and things like that, and then immediately you have the wimpy kids and the Harry Potters and this that, and
Yes.
which is probably not the right kind of books that I would want to buy. I mean, if they're reading it from a library and all that, it's fine. I mean, let the children be exposed to all the kinds of books, especially once they are, able to comprehend, probably after 10 or their preteens and things like that. But especially for little children, I think the thing is our Indian publishers are doing, I think, a fantastic job.
Yes.
Whether,
Yes.
like I mentioned, Pratham, there is Tulika, there is Tota, there is Karadi Tales. All of these guys are bringing out great content. I think as children, we grew up reading about Enid Blyton and lands far away with foods that they eat that we never know what it was, scones and ginger ale and all of that.
True.
But now you
That
have
is
stories about idlis and dosas and tiffins and it's very easy to associate with these. And it's nice that you say I'm a kid and there are stories about a kid like me, and it's not some blue-eyed blonde child,
very true.
uh, across the seas. So I would suggest you can of course buy books from bookstores, but if you do a little more research and follow publishers, there are lots of groups on Facebook. There is Reading Raccoons for children. There are all the Indian publishers have their own pages. There's Speaking Tiger, there's Talking Cubs, and Tulika, and all of them, where you can learn about their new releases, where they talk about sensitive issues. They talk about it's more inclusive. You have characters who are blind, perhaps in a wheelchair, which you hardly see otherwise in mainstream content. And so go beyond. I mean, I love the Panchatantra, I love Krishna tales, Mahabharata, and their children are going to be exposed to this either through TV or their grandparents or Amar Chitra Katha or any of these that we grew up with. But I think that this is a great time to be introducing a lot of new kind of content with subtle messages, which are beautifully illustrated, especially for little kids. And if you see words which don't seem appropriate, you can always explain to your child that these kind of things do happen, and but there is a sensitivity about it, and this probably you can read this book when you're a little older, so that you can just gently stop it at that. If you get a lot more questions about it, you can say that that is how the cycle of life is, and leave it at that. So
Mhm.
you can just take it as and when it goes. Just because you've bought it, you don't have to read it immediately. You can shelf it away and go with your instinct as a parent. If you feel your child is not ready for it, don't worry at all. It may say this book is for 2 to 6 year old or 4 to 6, but your child for some reason rejects it. Don't worry at all. Just leave it aside. Even the most acclaimed, critically acclaimed, and everybody loves the book, you bring it home, you pay 400 rupees for this one little book, and your child says, I hate it. It happens. So don't
Right.
worry. So there, if your child likes dinosaurs, buy dinosaur books. If your child likes empathetic books, buy books on sharing, caring, all of that. So you mix it up, see what works, see what doesn't work. There is going to be a bit of trial and error, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know. Actually, my son is also, I mean, my kids are also so used to the Diary of Wimpy Kids and stuff. And once I subscribed for this online portal called GetLit, and they had some wonderful stories by Indian authors,
Yes,
and using, the words that we use at home. The
correct.
food items, as you mentioned, there were idlis and unniyappams and amama and all those words.
Yes,
And all of a sudden, my son was so excited, saying that
yes,
he has never come across these kind of words in a the typical
absolutely.
books that
Yes.
age group reads. So I think that will. So, would you suggest any particular website where we can go look into it for such authors? Because I don't think there is much on the shelves in a common bookstore. Like, for
Yes.
example, if you go to a bookstore at the mall, there are only such typical books that children
Correct.
read. But I don't see much book from Indian authors generally there.
I think in one place that you, as a parent or a teacher, it's good to subscribe is the Reading Raccoons.
Okay.
So they bring out, it's a collective of people on Facebook. Every time somebody reads a great book for children, they post it there. Or
Oh,
if
yeah.
you ask for a review for this child in this group, or somebody who's facing some issue, it could be eating, not eating their tiffin, or what, any simple, or it could be something like bullying, or not happy, like body positivity, and for various age groups. So there is it's a nice community where people say you can read this book. So I
Okay.
think that's a great place to be. And if you are online, you can follow all the publishers, Speaking Club, Speaking Tiger, Pratham, Story Weaver, Tulika. They all have their releases coming out. They have their
Okay.
pages. So you can
Definitely look up for it. Yeah, they are reading Raccoonitis. Yeah, and even at Uriel Kids online, we have been creating a lot of books ourselves. I mean, our
Okay.
teachers and some experts we do have who have tried to put in some wonderful stories for children, trying to incorporate, various topics from general awareness and mathematics, and we have tried to inculcate through stories. So it is our humble attempt to do that because yes, we do love to teach through stories. So we are a lot into that also. So maybe sometime you could take a look and give us your thought on that.
Oh, I'd
How
love
we
to.
have done it so far. So we are not,
Yes.
we try to do our best. As you say, as mothers ourselves, I think we would have, we try to do our best, putting up some of our thoughts and ideas into stories to make
That's
learning
wonderful.
more interesting. Yeah.
I think there are a lot of independent publishers and schools bringing out their own content, and it's just great because I think as teachers, your roles are multifold, right? So you looking at everything from every different direction, and as counselors and teachers and librarians, everything's rolled into one. So
Right.
I definitely will look up the content.
Yeah, sure, sure, please. And the last request from you is could you please give us an experience of storytelling? I would love to listen a story from Vidya.
Now I'm nervous because after hearing all the things that you've done at Uriel Kids and Angel's Paradise, I'm not sure I can match up to it because I
Come
feel you
on.
have more experience.
Oh, no, no, no. We do get inspiration from people like you. I think I'm all ears to the story that you're going to tell to me now. Can't wait for it.
Okay, so I'll just probably do a tiny story. It's sort of an inspirational story and sort of just a story with animals. So let's see how it
Okay.
goes. Okay. So this is my little friend. This is Girish, the giraffe, and he is going to tell a story today about a little bird in the forest. Are you ready to listen, all of you? I don't want any of you falling asleep, says Girish. Just a minute, just a minute. That's so. Girish actually says he's feeling shy today and would rather not tell a story. And he would instead like me to tell a story. Is that okay? Is that okay, everyone? Girish is going to say bye. He just wanted to say hello to all of you here. Okay, Girish, you're off the hook for today. But the next time you have to tell the story. Is that okay? Let's say bye to Girish. Looks like I'm still caught. The giraffe is not good. Girish is not telling the story, so I have to share a story with you. So let's begin. Are you all ready? Have you got all your ears cleaned and your eyes peeled? Okay, so let's begin. There was once a forest fire, and it blazed on all night long, and the colors were orange and red, and you could see it across the sky. And all the animals were scared, wondering what would happen to their beloved forest. But the thing was, none of them were doing anything about it. There was the lion with its mane all bushy and beautiful. But the lion said, I'm not going to do anything about this. After all, this fire is too big. And if I try to do anything, my mane will get spoilt. And I just shampooed it yesterday, and I really don't want any of that soot or smoke in it. And then Everybody turned to the elephant because the elephant is such a large animal and has this big tusk and trunks. But the elephant said, no, 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 no. I am not going to do anything about it. It's just too big. And how many times do I have to go up and down filling my trunk with water? I think it's just an impossible task. You'll just have to wait for the firefighters to come or something. And it just watched and watched and watched. And then everybody began to look at the zebras because there were just so many of them and they were black and white. So they thought maybe they had some better ideas than the lion and the elephant. But the zebras just swished their tails and were of no help at all. And then finally, while they all just waited and waited and waited, a little hummingbird came onto the scene. And the little hummingbird was not talking to anybody at all. Instead, it seemed very busy. It just was flying left and right and front and back and was busy doing something. And everybody said, what are you doing, you little hummingbird? Flying here and there, it's hot out there, you're going to get burnt completely. But the hummingbird was not listening. Because do you know what the little hummingbird was doing? It was picking up a bit of water from the lake and then dropping it onto the fire. And it kept doing this. Bzzz, drop, bzzz, back, bzzz, drop, bzzz, back. And everybody began to look at the little hummingbird. Say, have you gone completely off your little rockers? They asked. The hummingbird finally had enough of everybody telling it to stop, stop, stop. It said, but I want to help. But they all said, do you look at your size? You're just this much. And look at us. We're so big and we don't think we can help. And the hummingbird said, that's what you think is wrong. I think I can help because I'm doing just as much as possible with my little beak. And all of us, however tiny we are, can all contribute a little bit instead of just sitting quietly. And I will do just as much as I can every minute instead of sitting and saying nothing can be done. And that's the story of the little hummingbird who would not stop even though it was so tiny and small. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. Wow, that is very nice, Vidya. Thank you so much. So,
I hope you
Vidya,
enjoyed
did you
it.
make, of course, did you make that hand puppet yourself?
Actually, my son drew it and then I cut it.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah, they
lovely.
usually help in all these things, and they are my wing people.
Yeah, that's very nice to hear. Vidya, I have one of a parent or viewer who is asking us how to make it interesting so that kids pick up some good values from the story, especially a parent. How to convey the values and morals through a story is what she asks.
Like we spoke about this before, I think children are empathetic by nature and are an open slate completely. So the way to convey morals or values is not by beating it down their heads and saying you must not be greedy and you must not be so and so, but let the story speak for itself. So when you do a story like this about the little hummingbird, for instance, you would say that the immediate reaction would be to say what is the moral of the story, and say that however small you are, you should just keep doing your bit. But if you say it, probably it somewhere gets lost and watered down. So the how I would suggest you do it with your kids is say, what do you think? Would you rather be an elephant? Would you rather be the zebra or the lion who was worried about his shampooed mane? Or would you be a hummingbird? And so keep your lessons subtle. Because even as adults, I think we don't like people telling us what we should do. And so treat your little children as little adults and let them make up their minds for themselves about what is a good value and a moral. And you would be surprised at the answers that come out. And usually they say the right thing. Then nobody's going to say that I think I'll be the lion because of this shampoo in my hair. We may think that secretly. Your child
Very
will say, I will be the hummingbird, and even though I'm small, I will contribute in every little way that I can. So, children just surprise you in that way.
can never imagine how a story can influence them. Very true.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this story was actually made popular. I think it's an African story by Wangari Maathai, who is a Nobel Prize winner. And she did a lot of work for the environment. And as an African woman, I suppose she initially was like, how can I make an impact in this world, in this environment? But she did. She started off in a small way, with a small step, just like a hummingbird, and eventually won the Nobel Prize for her work with the
Oh,
environment.
okay. A quick question, Vidya. Can you name a few books that you wrote? Could you give us a name so if I can look up somewhere?
Um, yes, I write for, like I said, for the Hindu and the Champak. So if you just do a search and for Vidya Nesrikar, some of them will pop up online,
Okay.
especially stories for Hindu. I think Champak is mostly offline, and you would have to actually get the magazine. And there is
Okay.
also I write for an app called Ma Pa Story, and I think that's a paid subscription. So you have to
Okay.
take the subscription and find the stories that they've done some great animation. So those are some of the things. There are a few things in the anvil, so I will share that perhaps with you next time when
Definitely.
we
Would
chill.
love to see, love to go through them. Thank you so much. All right. So now we are almost done with all our questions with Vidya. Vidya, is there anything else that you want to tell apart from apart from the answers that you gave? Is there anything else that I missed and you would want to convey?
Um, I think they get that stories can be limitless, and do not stay with the stories that you heard as a kid. Be open to listening and sharing stories of different cultures, different people, so that your child understands about inclusivity, diversity, different cultures, different points of view. Because this is the age where you're molding minds, and values and morals are just one part of it. And in this whole global environment, and the internet and all of it, where the everything is being shaped so fast for our children, I think as parents and teachers we play a very important role of what kind of content we're exposing our children to. And books and stories are just one way of doing it. So fill your houses with books, your libraries in schools with books. Have as many different kinds of stories from, and especially have Indian stories, because children at the end of the day like to connect, and one great way of connecting is a little kid eating an idli is a great way to make that connection. So,
That's true.
or a paratha or a momo, if you are from, so let's not limit ourselves to one part of India.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely. Right.
so keep different culture. There are such books available. A little bit of work from your end, and you will be able to find these books and stories. And if there's a story that's not yet written, you can make it up yourself and share that with your child
Oh,
on the
yes,
story.
we are good at it, aren't we?
So don't just worry that it's not been written yet. You can always write it and share it with your
Right.
students.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Vidya. Thank you for giving us an insight on what storytelling is all about and the benefits and values.
Thank you so
It was,
much.
yeah,
I
and
completely enjoyed myself, and I hope it was of some benefit to all of you who were listening.
yeah, we would like to see comments from all the viewers. It will really make us happy. And yeah, so if there are any more questions, feel free to post it. So there are a couple of minutes left, and I can ask Vidya if there is any. So yeah, so I
Yeah,
think we got to learn a lot, and it was very valuable to us as early childcare educators. I'm sure it will be very valuable to parents as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this webinar, and we'll see you back next time in yet another enriching Joy of Parenting episode. Until then, it is a goodbye from us, and take care, all of you. Thanks, Vidya. Bye, everyone.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.